The first thing you need to do is go to the Scratch website, scratch.mit.edu, and log in with your personal details. And the next thing you need to do is to create a new project. I'm going to delete the cat, and now I've got a completely blank project, and now I need to set it up for my translation app. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a background and a sprite, and my app's going to be a translation squirrel who lives in a woodland and can translate text into anything that you want. So the first thing that I'm going to do is add the squirrel sprite, and I'm going to add a background which is the tree background. Okay, so if we put the squirrel down there, then that looks pretty good, but what's going to happen is the squirrel's going to ask you to type some text in, and that text is going to appear here. So it's going to appear in front of the squirrel's face, and I don't want that. So what I want is the squirrel up here, which then shows this bit at the bottom. So the first thing I'm going to show you in this project is I want to put a bush in front of the squirrel, so it looks like the squirrel's peeking over the bush. So there isn't a bush sprite there that I can use, so I'm going to import a bush and put that in front of the squirrel. Now there's lots of different ways to do this, but if I type in bush PNG, so that's a type of image. A PNG is a type of image that can have a transparent background, and I'm going to say transparent background, and then go to the Google image search, and you'll see that there's lots of pictures of bushes there. Now, one word of warning is that not all of them have transparent backgrounds, and you might import these into your project and they don't work. Don't worry about that. If that happens, just try a different one. I'm going to use this one, and hopefully it will work. So I'm going to save that image as bush and save it to my downloads folder, and then I'm going to go back into Scratch. I'm going to go to the sprites and use this button here to say upload a sprite, and I'm going to select the bush image I've just downloaded, and you'll see now I can move that around, and I can have the squirrel further up, and yet it doesn't show the bottom, and I think that looks a lot better. So that's just one example of how you can just spend a little bit of time setting up your project and making it look as good as it can do. So I will save this as a starter project for you. So if you want to start with the same translation squirrel, you can do that. If you want to start with your own theme, so a different background, different sprites, then feel free to do that. Before I do anything else, I'm going to make sure that I give my project a name. So I'm going to call it Translation Squirrel, and I'm going to save that. And now if I go to my stuff, I'll be able to see the Translation Squirrel and know which project it is that I'm working on. After that, the next thing I need to do is add some extensions. Now, in order to translate between different languages, we need to add the Translate extension. The extensions are a new part of Scratch 3, and you can add them down here with this little blue button. You click on that and you'll see the extensions that are available to you. There's lots of different ones. There's music and drawing and video sensing, and the first one we're going to use is the Translate. So that will give us a couple of new blocks, and you'll see there's a new section here in the blocks and two new blocks which allow us to translate text into lots and lots of different languages. The other thing I want to do is I want this to be an audio app, so I want it to speak the language so that I can hear it as well as read the translation. So the other extension that I need to add is the text-to-speech extension, and I'll click on that, and that gives me some more blocks. So now we're ready to start coding the first version of our translation app, and we're going to start by creating the most basic version that we can do for just one language, so that we can check that the extension works and that everything else works. Now, for this basic app, all I want to happen is that when you click the green flag to start the app, the squirrel gives you instructions, which is if you click the squirrel, it will ask you to enter some text, and then it will translate it into the language of your choice. To do this, first of all, I need to make sure that the squirrel sprite is selected, and then when the green flag is clicked, I want the squirrel to say, click on me to translate. And then when I click on the green flag, it will say, click on me to translate. So the next event that I want is when the squirrel is clicked, so when this sprite is clicked, I want it to ask the text that you want to translate. So for this, I need to use one of the sensing blocks, and I need to use the ask block and ask, what do you want to translate? And that will click on me to translate and click on the squirrel, what do you want to translate, and it will bring up a text box. And you'll see here why I added the bush so that I could move the squirrel further up, because the text box here would have gone over the squirrel's face, and I didn't want that to happen. As we already have the text-to-speech extensions enabled, I think it'd be nice at this point if the squirrel didn't just ask the question as text on the screen, but also audibly ask the question at the same time. So to do this, all we need to do is select the text-to-speech blocks and select the speak hello block and put that before the question. Now I'm going to copy and paste this text into here. You could just type it again, but I'm going to use Control and C to copy it. On an iPad that would be Command and C, and then I'm going to select hello and use Control and V to paste it. On an iPad that would be Command and V. And now it should speak it audibly as well as asking the question on the screen. So if I click the green flag, it says click on me to translate. So I'm going to click on the squirrel and let's see and hear what happens.
What do you want to translate?
Now that almost did what I wanted it to do, but you may have noticed what actually happened there was when I clicked on the sprite, it spoke first, and then when it had finished speaking, it then asked the question on the screen. Making a great program is really about thinking about the detail and every single thing in the program, and that's not what I want to happen. I don't want it to do this green block and then the blue block. I want it to speak and it be on the screen at the same time. So to do that, I'm going to have to make a bit of a change, and I'm going to have to use broadcasts. Now broadcasts are really, really useful if you want to make two things happen at the same time. Otherwise, what will happen if you have blocks is that they will be executed, they will happen in order. So in this case, it will speak and then it will ask on the screen. Broadcasts are event blocks, and to create one, all I will do is, first of all, I'm going to broadcast a message when the sprite is clicked. So instead, I'm going to pull these two blocks away and say when the message is, when the sprite is clicked, to broadcast a new message, and that will be ask question. And then I'm going to break these blocks apart and use the block when I receive ask question, and use that again when I receive ask question to run both of these blocks. So that might look a little bit complicated at first, but it's going to be really useful further down the line when we make a more complex translation app. What's happening is this will happen when the green flag is clicked. When the squirrel is clicked, it will broadcast a message, and when that message is broadcast, these two things will happen at the same time. So let's have a try of that and see what happens. First of all, I'm going to click the green flag, and then I'm going to click on the squirrel.
What do you want to translate?
And what you'll have seen there is that is now doing exactly what I wanted it to, which is to broadcast the audio and the text at exactly the same time. So if I type in here, I want to translate hello, you'll see nothing happens, and that's because the next thing we need to do is add the translation. So now we're ready to add the code to make the translation, and to do that we're going to use the translate blocks and say use the block translate hello to finish is the default. Now you can choose whatever language you want. I'm going to choose Spanish first. Okay, and we don't want to translate hello to Spanish, we want to translate the answer to whatever the user has typed in here. So to do that, we go to the light blue blocks again and select answer and drop that over hello. So when the person's typed in, it's now whatever they've typed in there, it's going to translate that into Spanish. So the first thing we're going to do is send that out to the screen. So translate, we're not going to say hello for 2 seconds, we're going to say drop that block into it, and we want to do it as an audio translation as well. So we're going to use text to speech and say speak, and we want these blocks again. Now we can copy them in, you can get the green block and the blue block. A little bit of a scratch trick, if you're on a Windows computer, if you right click on the blocks you want to copy, you will get a duplicate option. To get the same thing on an iPad, you just hold your finger down on the block you want to copy for about a second and the same duplicate menu will come up. Select duplicate, we're going to drop that into there. So now when you click on the green flag, the squirrel says click on me to translate, and then it will, when you click on the squirrel, it broadcasts to say what do you want to translate at the same time in text and in audio, and then whatever you type in, it will say it out to the screen in text and say it audibly. Now what you might have noticed is that this is going to repeat the problem that we had up here, where it's going to do this block first, the purple block first, and then it's going to do the audio. And just to show that to you, if I click on the green flag, it says click on me to translate. So if I'm going to click on the squirrel and then enter some text.
What do you want to translate? Hola, ¿cómo estás?
So you'll have seen that it was not doing them at exactly the same time. So all I need to do is create a new broadcast. So I pull these blocks away and create a new broadcast. I'm going to broadcast a new message, which is translate. And when I receive that translate broadcast, I'm going to execute, which means make these two blocks happen at the same time. So when I receive translate and when I receive translate, it will now broadcast them at the same time. So click on the green flag, click on me to translate. So let's see what happens when I do that now.
What do you want to translate? Hola, ¿cómo estás?
And that is now doing exactly what I wanted to do, which is broadcast the text and the speech at the same time. The final thing I want to show you in this video is how we can make one further improvement to this using the set language feature in text to speech. Now, there's a slight problem with how this works at the moment, in that the text is being translated to Spanish and it is then being read out as if it was English. So you'll have noticed when it played, it didn't sound like authentic Spanish, it just sounded like an English person speaking Spanish. So we can improve that by using the set language. The set language block also helps us use languages that use a different alphabet. So for example, Japanese or Russian. So for example, if I change the language that I'm going to use to Russian, you will see that without adding the set language block, it's unable to make the audio translation.
What do you want to translate?
So I'm going to add the language block here just after I send the broadcast, and set the language to Russian as well, and run the program again.
What do you want to translate?
Здравствуйте.
And now it works and can translate the text but also the audio to Russian. Now that I've set the language to Russian here, the other thing I need to do is make sure that I set the language to English when I start the app with the green flag, otherwise it won't work properly. If I change this back to Spanish, you'll see that the difference that it makes, so I need to change the set language to Spanish and both of these blocks to Spanish. And I'll run the application again, and you should be able to tell the difference in the Spanish that is being spoken.
What do you want to translate? Hola, ¿eres tú?
So adding the set language there has improved the way that the translation and the audio translation is being read out and being transmitted via audio. And the only thing you must remember is to make sure you set that back to English, otherwise you'll get some pretty confusing results. Okay, so that's the first stage done. You can have a play with this and change these languages around to see that it works for any language that you want to create. So if you want to change it to Italian, you need to change all three of these blocks to Italian, and then we can run the program again.
What do you want to translate? Ciao, come stai?
and that will work for any of the languages. That's the first basic translation application done. What I'm going to show you in the next video is how to amend this so that we can use it for lots and lots of different languages, and you can select a language on the screen and not have to change the blocks here.